My name is Dylan Lockwood. I am the content editor at Z Prime, and we're here to talk about expanding solar into new markets. We're often told that solar power is more accessible and cheaper than it has ever been, but cost and accessibility are still obstacles to adoption in many areas. With the threat of climate change already affecting global weather systems, the question has to be asked: can we really afford to keep denying home solar generation to homeowners and landowners who want to be responsible but can't handle the price or logistics? So in this panel, we will discuss how we can continue to remove barriers to home solar and how we can make access to it more equitable. And to do that, I've got three amazing people here with me today. I'll have them introduce themselves. Anna, why don't we start with you?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Lozano. I am the Strategic Research and Innovation Manager at CPS Energy. And I have the opportunity of helping to develop and implement all of our customer solar programs here. I've been in the utility industry for 20 years. I actually started out at another municipally owned utility down in Brownsville in the Valley at the Brownsville Public Utilities Board. Spent a long time there and moved up to San Antonio about 5 years ago. And throughout my career in utilities, I have always led customer-facing programs, both on the C&I side and the residential side. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you. David, why don't you go next?
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity, Dylan. My name is David Feldman. I'm a senior analyst at the National Renewable Energy Lab. I spend most of my time looking into challenges and opportunities for solar energy in the U.S., both from distributed to large solar farms, and with a specialization in project finance. I've been at NREL for about 10 years, and before that I worked in project finance for a solar developer after I received my MBA.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And Bill?
Good morning, everyone. Bill Hetherington. I'm the Chief Executive Officer and General Manager at Bandera Electric Cooperative. Been in the electric utility industry for about 35 years with investor-owned utilities and working with technology companies as well as renewable energy companies, both domestic and international. So I've been at Bandera for about 7 years, and I want to kind of share with you kind of our model and our vision of what we're doing to try to promote energy efficiency and the use of solar.
Dan,
So Dylan, should I use
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I believe you brought something.
I just have a few slides for those of you who aren't familiar with where Bandera is. Bear with me here. Let's see if I can work this.
You had it there for a sec.
Did I? Okay, just a second. There we go. Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
All right, so our vision is reimagining rural America, and just bear with me. There's a reason why I'm saying that. And basically, it's because this is our service territory. For those of you who are not in Texas, we're about 45 miles northwest of San Antonio, Texas. But from an access to the internet, we're on the edge of the world. Most of our members have a hard time even getting a cell signal, let alone high-speed internet. And so part of this was driven by the members. And so our vision really is about what we talk about rural. There was a foundation poll, Washington Post foundation poll about in 2017. And what's interesting is that 6 out of 10 people, when surveyed, say they live in a rural area, even though only 2 out of 10 actually do. So it really kind of denotes how do people interpret what rural means? I think most people associate rural with contentment. Hey, my local community, quiet, peace and quiet, a relaxing environment. But what's really important is that third bullet, which is the line between what an urban person expectation and a rural person expectation is blurred. And the expectations are pretty much the same no matter where you live. Everybody wants access to the internet. Everybody wants alternative energy solutions. Everybody wants everything, cheaper, faster, better, as they say. So we've invoked a vision here to empower people from work from home, get access to high quality education and healthcare, accessible to affordable solar and energy storage through improving energy efficiency. And then that in turn provides a sustainable economic growth model for smaller communities, which is our vision of reimagining rural America. By the numbers, we're a small company, comparative, obviously only 37,000 electric customers. But in 2017, we started to provide a fiber optic network to improve our electric system, to fully automate our electric grid. By the way, we can also provide high-speed internet access with that same fiber optic network. And in 3 years, we've gone from 0 to 6,700 broadband customers, 802 phone customers, 310 solar energy storage installations, and we have 181 ApolloWare users across 7 counties here in South Central Texas. Just as a benchmark, those 310 installations represent about 3.7 megawatts of rooftop and ground mount solar and 574 kW of energy storage in the form of Tesla Powerwalls. This is the survey. I joined Bandera in 2013, and much to my surprise, in 2013, we were still selling water heaters and meter sockets and surge protectors, and nobody was buying anything. And then when I asked our members what they want, well, lo and behold, gee, they want solar and they want internet, which, okay, that answered that question. So that was really kind of the backdrop. As you all understand, our industry is changing. And so for us, over the last 4 years, we've implemented, in 2016, we started BEC Solar because we really felt that our membership was being treated poorly by some, I would say, unethical solar companies that were coming in and misrepresenting what the solar would actually do. That ended up hurting, I believe, the whole concept of solar. We felt that we had a good trusting relationship with our membership. And so we actually implemented same kind of utility style approach to distributed solar as you would approach to an electric grid. So we built standards and specs, and we made sure the quality was there, and we got the price down. In 2017, we started deploying fiber optics to our members. We now have more than 50% of our members have access. By 2022, 82% of all of our members will have fiber optics connected to their house. And that 82% represents all of the full-time residents of the Bandera Electric Cooperative. 2018, we started the BEC Energy Analytics developing ApolloWare, which is our behind-the-meter energy management system. And then just recently, we were awarded by USDA some monies for our energy efficiency program that we call Energy Saver. This just shows a couple screenshots of what ApolloWare can do as far as from a utility standpoint. I'm monitoring all 310 basically distributed rooftop solars in real time. It reports every second. So it's a very, very robust, allows us to actually determine where installations have been not designed correctly, poor PV design based on a clipping there. Obviously, the inverter is undersized for the number of panels that have been installed. So it allows us to have communication with our members about performance of their solar installations. We also were able to aggregate, in the lower left hand, aggregate all of those rooftops throughout the system, as well as understand what happens when an inverter fails. That happens a lot more than you would think. So it's really a powerful tool, and our members have been very helpful. This is just the app it's both in Google Store and iOS on Apple. So this is my house. So I have ApolloWare. It gives me a real-time update of what my monthly bill will be if I'm consuming at this rate right now. Just a screenshot from yesterday. Also monitoring every device in my house behind the meter, including my pool pump and air conditioning. And what's interesting to me is I actually consume more energy with my pool pump than my air conditioner, which is an issue. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But pool pumps have not necessarily been very energy efficient. They just kind of come on and run and run and run. So anyway, that's just kind of just the upshot of Bandera Electric Co-op and our really, I think for the most part, what we're here to talk about really is about solar. And recently, USDA basically approved the Powellware as an energy efficiency tool, and they provided us money, $5 million at 0% interest loan. It's a 20-year loan for us to start deploying basically energy efficiency, and that includes an energy efficiency audit, installation of a Powellware, smart thermostat, and solar. So we're actually going to utilize some low interest, well, zero interest USDA monies to help proliferate better energy efficiency for our members as well. So then that's about Bandera Electric Co-op. So I'll turn that off. And we should,
thanks for that, Bill.
It's more than you ever wanted to know, but
it's a good refresher course since we last talked on the podcast. But actually, there's one thing in there that I have in my notes, but I think is just kind of pertinent since you just brought it up. You were talking about how there were vendors that were coming in that were sort of misrepresenting products, and it was doing some pretty shady stuff, and that's something that I had not really actually thought about until Anna, you had brought it up in a call we had earlier. So Anna, can you tell me a little bit about? I mean, you don't have to call anyone out by name, but like what are some of those practices sort of look like, and what responsibilities do solar providers have to residents and utilities?
Yeah, thanks. I won't call them out. We did talk a little bit about this, right? And I will tell you that we see everything from misrepresentation to customers, right? Misusing our logo, deceiving customers and deceptive practices. And so, that's really important to us. Let me say, I guess a lot of times, right, when we talked, right, we talk about customer plus utility, and a lot of times we forget about the solar installer and the role that they play in the customer experience. And we invest a lot of time in developing relationships with all of our installers here. And I think that's proven to be really valuable and important for us, right? And we learned that lesson. At the end of the day, they're the expert in what they do, right? They're the boots on the ground, talking with our customers, representing our rebate program, promoting it, and they've got firsthand knowledge of customer barriers. And so we realize they can be advocates for us. And so we've invested a lot of time in developing relationships, and we have about 80 CPS Energy registered solar installers. And when I say registered, in order to participate in our rebate program, they need to register with us. We have a program manual that has guidelines that they must meet and follow and criteria. And in order to continue participating, they need to be in good standing. And so I'll give you an example of one of the criteria that we have, and it's a price cap on projects. So we don't allow any projects over $4 per watt to be rebated. And I picked that one because it's an example of how we collaborate with our local solar industry. We didn't come up with that price cap. That was actually developed based on feedback from the industry, from the installers themselves. And so they take pride and responsibility in the work that they do here in our market because they're here to stay for the most part. And so they saw just a few contractors out there that were really just taking advantage of customers and charging way too much. And so they thought $4 was a good price cap. And so we've had that for several years, and we see projects come in way under that, but not over that. And so that's an example of the collaboration we have with the industry. And we have a lot of really good installers here. They take pride in their work, and they care about their brand. That's important to them. But then we do have a few bad actors, which I will not name. But it actually is with the support of the solar industry here, right? The market here just doesn't tolerate them. Customers have learned a lot through the years, right? The installers that are here to stay don't want to see those practices because it makes it difficult for them to sell systems as well, right? And so it is a collaboration between us and the industry. And I will say that we just don't tolerate those bad actors here. What I would also tell any installer out there, right, is that utilities talk to each other. And so, when installers move from one market to another market, we talk to each other. You can't just start all over when you come into another territory. So I would caution them with that. But I think as long as the installers, and we have a lot of them who really believe in the value of solar and what they're doing for their customers, I think as long as they work with the utility, and I think utilities too should be open to that type of partnership and dialogue. It is not a confrontational relationship. We embrace their feedback, and even as we look to develop new programs, we look to them. They're the ones out there. They hear about the new innovative technologies or what customers are seeing or wanting or their barriers, and so it really is a relationship. So that's how we see it here.
Yeah, talking about those barriers, the biggest one that usually comes to mind is cost. So, David, we hear constantly about the increasing accessibility of residential solar, but it's still seen by many customers as a luxury item. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, if you talk about the upfront cost of the system, it's come down by, in the past 10 years, maybe, it's half or even more. It's a third of the price it maybe was. Maybe something that cost $40,000 still costs maybe $13,000, but $13,000 is still a lot of money. And so in that way, if you just think about the sticker price of a system, I could see why some folks, particularly when they're thinking about historical prices, could see why that would be a luxury. I would say two things. One, the price has come down dramatically, and it's actually really hard to just keep track of how prices have dropped in such a short amount of time. I mean, you don't see that with other products that are sort of infrastructure in nature. Sure, like it's more like the price of a flat screen TV than the price of a countertop. The other thing I guess I would mention is that, and Bill I think spoke to that in part with his mention of the loans from the USDA, is that the upfront cost of some of these things can be prohibitive, but there's been over the past 5 or 10 years a proliferation of financial products. So just as when you go to get a new mattress, you don't necessarily have to pay for it up front. There are financial products. People don't expect necessarily for folks to have $2,000 lying around for a mattress, or $13,000 or whatever it is for a PV system. There are financial products out there, whether it's loans or other arrangements that allow customers to basically start saving money day one by there's some financing, there's some cost of either a loan or some other thing, but the money that's sort of more than offset by the money they're saving from the utility bill, and that obviously is not in every location for every system, but there's certainly a lot of potential there, and because the prices come down so much, it's a lot more states than there once was. I think I have some slides, but I'll just sort of mention that I think 10 years ago there was one state that was installing more than 100 megawatts of residential solar each year. By 2019, that number had jumped to 20. So it's there's a lot more markets than it. I think there's like 45 states out there in the U.S. that installed more than a megawatt, which relatively small compared to 100, but still there's some sort of market in most states out there in the U.S.
Yeah, we just had a question come in from Sheba that says, what is the average price per watt? What the average price per watt are the panelists observing in the field? I believe that's for regarding solar, and address that to our utility panelists. Bill, why don't we start with you?
For our members, we charge $2 a watt rooftop and $2.30 a watt ground mount.
What about CPS?
It's really good. I think we see anywhere from $340 to $360 a watt for rooftop.
Excellent. So, Bill, what are some of the challenges for getting solar to more remote communities? Like how did you sort of accomplish that at Bandera?
Well, I think that the challenges of rural America and rural communities is more of a challenge of economics, as both Anna and David alluded to. This is not for the faint of heart. These systems are, in essence, you're buying a vehicle, and so the challenge for us is really to look at this as a holistic view of improving energy efficiency. So we start with an energy audit. We start with understanding where they're wasting energy or where it's inefficient, and how can we incorporate solar as part of that solution to help reduce energy cost as part of an overall energy efficiency improvement. And that was how we were able to obtain some funding through USDA. I think this is always going to be a challenge. I mean, there's always going to be decisions made on priority. Is I have some money, what should I spend my money on? Should it be I'm buying a new car or putting it on solar? So those are the challenges, and I think they're not just universal to the rural America. I think they're pretty much everywhere.
And Anna, what are some of the unique challenges of trying to bring solar to an urban community, like a big city like San Antonio?
Yeah, I think we have some of the traditional challenges with solar, right? We have a lot of older homes, right, in our community, and so structural challenges, older electrical wiring that requires, updating or new electrical panels, and so that just adds to the upfront cost for a lot of customers. So we see a lot of that. We've got some beautiful historic neighborhoods in San Antonio that have restrictions, and rightfully so, right, where solar isn't allowed. So we have got customers that live there, or even HOA with restrictions. And then we have a large population in San Antonio that rents. They live in apartments, they rent their homes, right? Can't put a system on a roof you don't own. So those are some of the barriers that we see here. And knowing that, I will say, we've launched our new community solar program. And so we really believe that, community solar really has helped alleviate some of the barriers that these customers have faced, right? So in community solar, you can buy panels at off-site locations, and it doesn't matter whether you rent or there's shading or any of those challenges. So you still get the benefit of solar without having it on your roof. And so we think that we've seen a lot more customers take advantage of it, which opens up the market to a lot of these customers that face those barriers.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot that the utility has to do in regards to helping walking the customer through overcoming those barriers. David, you mentioned that there are like financing options and financial products out there, but getting people from point A to point B on that, or from point A to point C, it can be a little tricky. But I do want to touch a little bit on the regulatory aspect. We got some folks from Texas here, which has a very unique regulatory environment when it comes to energy, and also when it comes to solar. David, I'll start with you though, because you working for NREL, you've got kind of a broader scope. Do regulators at a local level have a significant impact on solar demand and or accessibility, and what makes for kind of good policy in general?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the quick answer is yes. I mean, it certainly depends what we're defining as solar, because certainly there's a lot of folks who are getting solar energy and they don't even know it. It's just that the utility is buying a lot of solar, and it's part of their energy mix, and that's great. And then there's other options like community solar. But as far as sort of on-site solar, a significant portion of that, the cost of a system is not because the price of panels and all the equipment has come down so much. A significant portion of the cost is really all the stuff associated with permitting it, getting interconnected, the customer acquisition, all of these things, and regulatory. The regulatory environment matters a lot. It also matters sort of, particularly if it's on site, what you're doing with the power. It's particularly for residential homeowners. It's not it's not fairly common for all of the solar energy that gets produced to be consumed in the house without sort of on a one for just sort of directly to the house. A lot of time, when the sun is shining, not so much these days with COVID, but most of the time people are out of the house. So a lot of times it requires the without the use of a battery or other things, which can add to the cost. The need to export that power to the grid, and then the question is sort of how valuable is that? So sort of the regulatory framework and sort of how power is treated, and then so what we call net metering in a lot of states. A lot of states with net metering policies have traditionally had much more or some sort of framework to compensate for that energy. Have strong solar. Other things like permitting and interconnecting processes, those things can really add to the upfront cost of the system, because that takes a lot of time for installers to go to the permit office to get it connected. What if they have to refile? That's, there's all sorts of things. And if that thing takes months, it often involves customer attrition. So customers just say, look, I'm not interested. It's been 6 months. So those things add cost to a homeowner or to an installer, and that eventually passes on to the homeowner. So there's a lot of things like that can really add to the cost. So really, smoother permitting processes, clear understanding of compensation for a PV system can really affect the economics of a PV system. And then just in general, like the regulatory, what are the rate structure of an environment? So, for example, California has historically had tiered pricing, where the more power for residential, the more power you consume, the higher it is. So it's basically you're I don't want to say penalized, but you're sort of encouraged to use less power. Well, that just makes solar energy that much more attractive as a sort of energy, reduction. But different rate structures, obviously, that's going to be different impact.
Right. And we did get another question in the chat, and we'll get to it in a sec. But I want to follow up with Anna on this. When it came to your community solar program, did you feel like the regulatory environment helped you be set up for success? Or sorry, my cat is trying to his little tail's flapping in. But did you feel like the regulatory environment was helping set you up for success, or was it an obstacle to making community solar a reality?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it. Texas is unique, and so we are a municipally owned utility, which means we have the privilege of being regulated locally, right, by our local regulators. And so I say privilege because we share a common vision and a common goal, right, to serve our community. And so for us, we have that support. It's something that our community wants. Our local regulators and leadership support it. So there were no barriers when it came to offering community solar.
And Bill, was that a similar situation for you, that there was no real barriers to getting solar to your customers or to your members?
Yeah, not from a regulatory standpoint, as Anna mentioned. We likewise are also fortunate as a cooperative that our board of directors, in essence, is our regulator, and so that we've had no real barriers from that standpoint. It's allowed us to be a lot more flexible and accommodating to our customers' needs, which is at the end of the day what we all want. We're here to serve our members or our customers and our citizens, and so that affords us that luxury. So we've been very fortunate, and I think that's from a regulatory standpoint. I think we're in a good spot.
Can I just add one more thing? It just, since we have two colleagues from Texas, and I think it's sort of a unique. You think about affecting costs, and I'd love to get their thoughts. But one of the challenges, and I mentioned permitting, I mentioned some other things. It involves customer acquisition and just sort of the cost to get a customer. And one of the challenges that many installers have is because there are so many different jurisdictions, there's a bit of a learning ramp up that you have to do if you're going into new territory, which can potentially add to the cost. So in a place that, like in Texas, where there are so many different things, I guess one of the knocks that we hear sort of at a national level, not of Texas, but just sort of in general, like just the challenges of having so many different jurisdictions with so many different rules, and that sort of adds to the cost and also to the confusion, because then you also, it's not just a matter of the developer or the installer getting up to speed, but then conveying that to the customer, which might be different if the customer was with Anna or with Bill, and that sort of might be, they might be best friends, but they just might have different different circumstances.
Sorry, Anna, it looked like you were about to say something.
I might have missed the question.
Sorry. Maybe I was just rambling.
I agree with what you said, but yeah, I wanted to answer your question if there was a question there.
This is the question, just your thoughts on, do you see, do installers in your area talk to sort of the challenge of sort of being, in a place where, in CPS, it's one way, but, right across, the line, it's something different. And sort of the request for more standardization, maybe across territories.
So I'll give you some feedback that we hear, and we're right up or down the road from Austin, and so we do hear a lot of, in Austin we're able to do this, but I'll tell you what, just like I said with utilities, we all talk, and so a lot of times we do sync up because we're working with best practices. So it isn't that we do it because they do it or they do it because we do it, or to make it easier for installers. They're good practices. In terms of local jurisdictions, I'll say, we have our territory. It's a huge territory. And with that, outside of the city of San Antonio, we also serve like 34 suburban communities. And so I will say that, it's a challenge for installers, especially new ones entering the market, to understand and work with all the different jurisdictions out there. But other than that, we don't hear a whole lot about that from installers.
Bill, have you heard some of that? Have you heard any of that, Bill?
Yeah, we at one point when we started BEC Solar, we pretty much confined it to our service territory, to our membership, because, we didn't want to have that issue of having to absorb costs to go and acquire. We didn't want to be a solar salesman. Okay, let's put it that way. We felt that as an electric member-owned cooperative, it would be in our best interest to our membership to provide this as a product through the utility. Now, I'm not suggesting that that our customers can't buy from others. In fact, if you want to go and use, Tesla or SunPower or whoever you want, that's great. We don't, we encourage that. But we want to ensure that they have an understanding of what they're getting before they buy, because that really seems to be the disconnect. I think as far as from the contractors themselves, we've been pretty easy to deal with. We don't necessarily have a lot of the permitting constraints also. And I know in a lot of urban areas, and you're going to have more code issues and wiring and things like that from the safety standpoint. Certainly in Bandera County, it's a little lighter touch than that. So I think we've been fortunate, but we've have a good relationship with the contractors, whether they're installing our solar or someone else's.
So we had a question come in that said, how can we make solar more attractive to those with aging roofs that may need replacement soon? And that's an important question. I think it sort of gets into what we wanted to talk about in regards to incentives, and how that can help people that might not think of home solar as an option for them actually be able to. And I believe, David, you had some short presentation about this as well.
Sure. Yeah. well, yeah. Let me see if I can speak to it rather than bore you with some slides. But basically, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, so solar, the residential. I think there's over 2 million residential solar systems in the U.S., which is a lot. But if you think about the sort of actual penetration, there's only about like 1% of single attached homes actually has solar. So that's really not sort of there's a lot of systems, there's a lot of homes without that, and so that's still like a lot of opportunity. And so while it's come a long way, it's still a relatively new product, and so I think it's a lot of this is about getting more enmeshed with sort of the way we install homes and do home projects, and getting folks that sort of are involved in that space more sort of up to speed with the how to install solar and the benefits of solar and all those things. So you talk about old roofs. Well, one of the great opportunities if you're re-roofing, do that with solar. That you have the opportunity to significantly reduce the cost of the solar system. That's the ideal time to do it. And then also there's so you'd potentially get a solar system for cheaper than you would if you're doing sort of just installing it yourself. And then there's the added benefit of financing, which is that if you're going to take out a HELOC, for example, to do home improvement like a re-roof, roll the solar system, cost of the solar system into that, and then you get a loan at what is it these days? It's pretty cheap. What the mortgage rates are these days, at sort of long, at relatively long duration. So there's a lot of opportunities, and it's really just about sort of getting the roofers out there to sort of understand the product, getting customers to be thinking about this, and really, the retrofit market which has been most of the solar installed in the U.S. today. This is just there's a lot of advantages, but there's a lot of opportunities for new homes and re-roofing projects. So, yeah.
Excellent. So Anna, there are lots of factors that contribute to why solar can be difficult to get to some communities. But as I said at the top, the bottom line is that if there is demand, then the utility needs to put work in with underserved areas to help them get over those initial barriers. And if you disagree with that framing, then please let me know. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. But what if you do agree with that framing? What are some of the best ways to build, to maybe not build that relationship because you're already their utility, but what are the best ways to walk them along that process? David just mentioned some, especially in terms of the financial aspects, but there's also logistical issues as well that I'm interested to hear about. Yeah,
and I think we talked a little bit about underserved areas, right? And I agree. There are barriers for customers, and a lot of times I think, as you mentioned earlier, it isn't just cash. A lot of times it isn't that you need cash to purchase a system, but you might need to finance it. And so there are plenty of customers who don't have access to credit, right? Or if they do, they are stuck with really high interest rates because maybe they have some credit issues. And so that is a huge barrier that we see with some of our customers. And so an approach that we've taken to help address this is actually through our community solar program. We solicited and we sent out an RFP and we solicited for a community solar program, and we asked and we challenged the respondents to bring us something that was innovative, right? An innovative approach to community solar. But in addition to that, we asked that they make a conscious effort to serving what we call our low to moderate income customers, or LMI customers. And so we selected a firm. They were a local firm. I will say they are Go Smart Solar. They have launched our Big Sun Community Solar program. It's a 5 megawatt program, and they have done just that. And so what they did is they went out and they raised some money through local foundations and charities and organizations to help create the solar assistance program for these customers. And a lot of times it is the upfront money. And so they are actually offering customers a down payment assistance. And they, again, partnered with local organizations that share the same goal in helping to reduce the energy burden for some of these customers. And so they're able through this, and it is a pilot program, but we're really interested to see what kind of appetite there is, the education and communication that goes on with these customers. And so they'll be able to offer down payment assistance. And they also partnered with a local credit union, which I think is a really important piece, right? And so this credit union is going to finance these projects for 15 years, and it's a 25-year program, so customers get the benefit of the production for 25 years. But they partnered with this credit union to offer 15-year loans at a 4.5% interest. And for a lot of these customers, they would not be able to get that kind of loan anywhere else. And so they have the down payment assistance and they have the financing piece. And so they've actually worked it with this small group of customers, right, so that they are cash flow positive from day one, which means that their average monthly credit will be greater than their debt service or their loan payment. And so we're really excited to see how this takes off. We actually just launched it recently, and they've also partnered with TEPRI and some other organizations. And so we think that this may be one way to help these customers overcome that initial barrier. So we'll stay tuned. We'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that turns out. I think that there'll be it'll be a very interesting use case. Bill, we're coming close on time here, so I want to ask you this last question. What are some of the best investments a utility can make to ensure their customers are happy with their efficiency and their bills in regards to the solar that we've established they clearly want? Because that's ultimately what this is all about, is efficiency.
Right. So, I mean, I guess if you were asking me, I put up a shameless plug for ApolloWare. I think everybody needs to install ApolloWare on their home, and we'll be glad if just give me just hook us up like us on Facebook, and we can make sure that happens. But in all seriousness, I think that really one of the things that gets left out of this discussion is the energy conservation aspects of it and the energy efficiency part of it. When you realize that almost 30% of the energy that is transported over our electric system is actually wasted, we need to do better. And of course, obviously, if you generate load or generate energy close to the load, you reduce losses. So from a holistic energy system standpoint, it's much more energy efficient to generate at the load. What we've got to do is put into place mechanisms, incentives, rates that are reasonable, that make sense for everyone, but are also rewarding people for reducing system losses, for rewarding people for improving load factor, improving energy efficiency. That's how we get there. Next year, we hope to actually roll out a program where we actually will finance the solar and put it on the bill. So it'll just be a line item on their bill. If you want solar, it's $150 a month. And you're just you're going to see the benefit of that. Whether or not it offsets completely, well, that's really debatable. But I mean, there are ways that I think utilities can lead the way, and I think that's what we're all trying to do here, is provide creative ways that incentivize people, but yet at the same point in time, we've got to also make sure that we're not truly just subsidizing something.
Actually, we did get one question in Q&A, and it's a big one, but we're gonna have to keep our answers short because we're up against time here. But okay. So Peter said, rooftop solar is significantly more expensive on a per kilowatt hour produced basis than utility scale, or as a general matter, simply buying from the grid. What I tend to see is that to some degree offset by tax credits and net energy metering. Today, these subsidies are being paid for by others, ultimately, especially as rooftop solar penetration makes it a more significant presence on the grid. These subsidies will go away, or their costs will become significant for those paying them, which means rates will become prohibitive, especially for those with lower incomes. What do you all see as a solution to this challenge in the future? Lightning round. David, we'll start with you.
That's a tough question. I mean, I think prices have to come down for residential and to a lesser extent commercial systems. I think that net metering sometimes gets a bad rap. It's not necessarily a wealth transfer, and in that, depending on the area, the load it's offsetting might actually be more valuable than the what it's getting credit. It just sort of depends on how much solar and other things are being used. And the credits, the tax credits are going away. So that's sort of, but I think continued, efficiency and reduction in costs will help. And as Bill said rightly, like there is a difference between the cost of solar being produced on site versus 50 miles out of town where you have to pay for the transmission line and the distribution center. So it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison.
Mm-hmm. And Anna, David said the prices has to come down. Where does that come from?
I think going back to what Bill said in efficiency, it's really important to size that system correctly, right? You got to make your home as efficient as possible so that you don't oversize and overpay for the system. But I think we continue to see prices drop. I think there's still some room for prices to drop. I think there's a lot of new technology coming out, and I think it's just a matter of time to see those prices drop.
And Bill, what are other ideas for solutions to this impending problem?
Well, I think it's kind of a smorgasbord approach, where basically everything works. I mean, we offer community solar and as well. Obviously utility scale solar is going to be cheaper, but it does require an infrastructure to deliver the energy, which means more system losses, which means more transmission lines. And so I think we've got to think differently about a decentralized grid. A lot of folks on the rooftop and the ground mount, see in our area, we have a lot of ground mount, but I think, realistically, it's a mix of everything. You're going to have a hybrid, I think is the best way to describe it. And that provides then the best solution for everybody. That's my quick answer.
It was a very good answer.
That was
Thank
good,
you.
Bill.
So Bill, Anna, David, I want to thank you all so much for being on this panel. I mean, there's clearly we could talk all day about this. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I'm very thankful for this discussion and for you all being on it.
Thanks, Tom.
And yeah, with that, I'll pass it back to Erin to lead us into some yoga.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, panelists. Anna, David, thank you. Bill, thanks again. You've actually been on our podcast before, which Jason Rodriguez sent a link in the chat over there, the Rural Revolution. So if you guys are interested in learning more about what Bill's doing, you can check out our podcast.